All right, great to meet you all. Very good morning. I hope you have had your breakfast. The session's planned for a couple of hours. I plan to finish it in 1.5 hours. Let's hope to have a good interactive session, like I said. So I have put in a few quiz questions in between to keep it engaging, and also I'll be asking some of you who are interested to participate in between when need arises and when things get interesting, right? So our topic for the day, first about myself, I am Dr. Ganesh Paramasivam. So I am an interventional cardiologist. I currently work in Kasturba Medical College, Mahe, Manipal. Many of you might have heard about Mahe University. So it's located on the west coast, directly opposite, on a straight line from here. So this is the east coast, and directly on a straight line to the west, that's where I work. I have, I think, Aniruddha here, who's from my place, Manipal. So it's great to have you here, man. So I did my MBBS from Bangalore Medical College. Then I went on to finish my MD in medicine, and then super specialty degree, that is DM in cardiology, from the Postgraduate Institute of Medical Education and Research, Chandigarh. People in medical fraternity pretty well know the name. It comes right after AIIMS. But non-medical people may not know the the Higher Educational Institute, PGI. It ranks right there, up there with the best in the country. So I was very happy to have that opportunity to learn from the experts there, mainly time management, I should say. So today's topic is artificial intelligence in healthcare. So what are the opportunities out there, and what does the field look like? So this is what we are going to discuss. So usually in a workshop, like if you go by the textbook definitions of a workshop like this, it usually caters to an audience who are looking for a specific skill, right? Maybe a programming challenge, or a particular problem, or a new software utilization, or a coding challenge or something like that. But this one is a very broad topic. It's more of a introductory kind of a webinar, I should say. So I have some elements like problem solving in this to make it more like a workshop. But then please let's set the expectations right. So this is for you to for the people from non-medical background who are interested in AI and machine learning to have a very high level overview of what is there out there in healthcare domain, right? So a lot of new jargon may come up as I do the presentation. I'll try to simplify it as much as possible. I'll keep it in non-medical terms. But in case I throw up some medical jargon in between, feel free to raise your hands and ask me to explain it. I'll be very happy to do that for you, right? So I'll start off with a disclaimer. Again, this is a very broad topic, so I've collected resources from various parts of the internet and research papers and stuff, and also a couple of videos and photos which may have copyrighted issue, but this is only being used for educational purposes, so that should be okay. Alright, so before we move on, like it's customary these days to start everything with a quote, right? So any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, is what Clarke's third law says. There are other two laws about possibilities and impossibilities. You can check it out. It's quite interesting. Can I have some help with that? Yeah. Yes. All right. So today we would like to talk about these topics as much as possible. And feel free to ask any questions in between, and we are trying to cover it a little bit deeper in some aspects and superficially in many different aspects, so that you have a broader overview and some in-depth knowledge about a couple of things. So we'll start with an overview of what is AI, ML and DL, and that is artificial intelligence, machine learning and deep learning. Then applications of AI in healthcare. We'll start with the examples, what is available and what's in production. Then we'll do one case study, a little bit in deep, about one of the most common kind of work that you'll see in the healthcare domain. And we'll again summarize what are the other broader applications outside of the examples that we have discussed. We'll also discuss briefly, this is an entire class in itself or an entire day's workshop in itself, ethics and challenges in AI. We'll, in the end, for you to assess as to suitability as a career or a job opportunity, or let's say a business opportunity, we'll see what is the size of this opportunity compared to maybe related fields, and we'll try to enumerate a list. Of course, it's not an exhaustive list, but we'll enumerate the list of skills that you need to develop beyond what you're learning in this BS degree, so that you are better equipped to handle AI in the healthcare domain. So before I move on, I'd like a quick introduction. We may not be able to go through all of you, but by the raise of hands, I'd like to know how many of you are in the foundation level. All right, that's I think that's good that I started with an overview of AI. All right, so how many are you in diploma level, either diploma data science or programming? All right, that's great. How many of you have completed diploma level? Very few. How many of you are in degree level or BS level for that matter? Very few. Okay. Kind of had a intuition about the audience, and I hope this helps. And one more question quickly. How many of you have finished MLP and MLT? All right, very few. Oh, that's great. Okay. How many of you have any experience, heard about or worked with or know anything about deep learning? That's quite a few. All right. Okay. So those you already know, bear with me, but I think the predominant audience is foundation and early diploma people, so they may not have an entire picture of what they are doing and what actually they are learning from the BS degree. So your degree is data science and applications, and I'm very happy to be with you as a student and also a faculty who is sharing my knowledge about healthcare with you. So your degree is it's a very broad degree. It's a very broad degree. It's data science and applications, and this diagram does not capture all the applications, but it captures what is relevant to today's workshop, that is about AI and its other subdomains, right? So data science is much more than AI, and AI involves a lot of data science, and of course there are terms like big data and data analytics which get thrown in. Data analytics is per se not AI or ML, but big data is overlaps because a lot of ML aspects are there in big data analysis per se. So coming to the various types of machine learning, again the people who are in diploma level who have finished machine learning already know many of these things, but for those who haven't yet started out, who are still in the foundation level and early diploma, so we have few paradigms in machine learning. The most famous one, which you all will be familiar, is something known as supervised learning, right? So this is when you give an exam, let's say you start with a data set where answers are already provided. So you know that for this particular description or this particular description or variables that you have, this is the answer that you are looking for. So that like that you have like thousands and thousands of examples, and then you provide it to a model, you develop a model, or you write some code so that you learn from that data. You tell that, like you teach a child, like this is a cat, this is letter A, this is number 1, this is 1 plus 1 is 2. So you have a lot of examples for a specific particular problem, and then you feed it to the model to learn it on its own. That's why it's called machine learning. And this aspect, when you give it the answers to learn, it's called supervised learning. When you don't have the answers per se, you just have a lot of data, like for example, you have a lot of tweets, and you want to analyze, let's say the politics is, the election season is on, so you want to see what is the sentiment of people, where are they inclining towards one party or another party. So when you want to have an analysis of this, you don't know the answers, you are not asking people which party are you voting for, you just know that these are the things that they're writing, okay, I am liberal, I am conservative, so you get an idea of what the sentiment is, and you group those people. So one of the tasks which we commonly do in unsupervised learning is grouping of people, so that's comes under unsupervised learning. There are other aspects which will not go in much of detail, I'll just name them: reinforcement learning, semi-supervised learning. There's another branch, anomaly detection, kind of uses a lot of these other techniques. And to summarize, AI is again A large part of AI this current day is definitely supervised learning, deep learning, which is again a kind of supervised learning. It uses both supervised and unsupervised. That is why you keep it as a separate entity. A lot of AI today is machine learning, which includes deep learning, but that's not it. Like AI is much more than just machine learning. You will be taking separate courses in the future in your degree level, where there are courses in AI offered and there are electives which you can choose, where you clearly get to understand that beyond machine learning there are other intelligent systems that you can design, especially in vision, in natural language. There has been a lot of work even in the pre-ML era with respect to processing natural language. There is robotics, it's a very big field. All of you have heard the examples of the Tesla cars, auto driving promise that we have never realized so far. So all this comes under the domain of artificial intelligence. So this is a brief introduction of AI and ML and where it fits in your coursework for the benefit of the junior people here. All right. So the next big segment that we are going to talk about is, we'll start with the examples. Instead of directly diving into a single particular project or a case study, I'd like to give you an overview of how things are, like what are the things that are already available in healthcare domain as of today, right? And then we'll move on to examples which can be, and then we'll probably see some out of the world ideas there which can be done through AI. So there's a lot to take in. So let's get started. So this is just an overview of what are the possible areas of healthcare. So coming to that, almost how many of you have been to the hospital? Right? That's great. How many of you not been to the hospital ever? It's like nobody. Great. So you have been there as a patient, or or with a relative of yours, sometime in your lifetime as a visited the hospital. But I'll ask another question which is related. How many of you use another technology like mobile phones? Please. I want active participation. Let's keep it fun. Yeah, see. Great. So why am I asking these two questions together? The thing is, let's say most of you, anybody from medical background as such has any qualifications? You're from? Your name? Yes. All right. Great. Then your name? Oh, great. Oh, great. Where? Tanjore. You're close to my place only, Virudachalam. Great to have you here. Anybody else from medical background? Yeah, please introduce yourself quickly. All right, great.
I have done my master's in pharmacology and genetics.
Great. Where do you work? Where are you currently? Oh, great. He's from pharmacology. Louder, please. In drug development. Great. There, he'll relate. Yes, please. Oh, great. You're currently working for private firms? Where? Great. Oh, great. So you are working in active drug development these days. A lot of work is going on in that field. You are also familiar with drug development? You are part of it?
Yeah, I'm helping the IT industry to develop the software related to this.
Great. Maybe in the end, if we have time, we can ask them also about their inputs. We have one domain here, that is the drug development and pharmacology domain, about what they would expect, like from the industry, what skills do they expect. I'd like you to talk few words maybe in the end, towards the end of the presentation. Great. So as you can see, I'll come back to that question of why I asked between mobile phone usage and visiting a hospital. Like, you have an intuitive understanding of mobile phone and several other technologies, right? You are using banking apps, you are using maybe ticket booking apps and a lot of other things, and also you have been to the hospital. But what is the difference there? The difference is that these technologies, the mobile technologies that I spoke about, those are to the general audience. You have a much deeper understanding of what goes on you know what transaction means, you know what money means, you know how that gets cut and how that is regulated, you have a link to your savings bank account, you know the entire process, right? You almost have a very good understanding of that particular field. And let's say, take another example, if you have a movie review app or you're using a movie app or something to book a ticket or to understand which movie to watch, again you have an understanding like what you like, and you can place yourself at the center and you know that what other people might like, might not like, you have a good understanding. But in healthcare domain, that is not there. So basically you've visited a hospital, you've been maybe a patient or a patient attender, you've maybe been through one aspect of it, only the patient's perspective. You have almost no idea about how the hospital works and what are the problems that we face and how we approach patients, what problems they come with, how best can we do to help their problems. You know, all these aspects are not familiar to you. It's shut off from the general world, right? You don't know. You need to be a specialized person. You need to be in that field to know more about the field. So in that sense, it's kind of, let's say, closed. But not in the current era. Domain knowledge is what I'm going to come back at. That's what the example is about, and why that gap needs to be filled is one of the main things I want to address from the workshop. So as you can see, there are a lot of areas where you can apply AI in healthcare. So the most common ones are medical diagnosis. You go with some problem, what is the disease? So everybody understands this part, so and it has most applications and most impactful applications there. Drug development, we have friends here from the pharma side who are actually involved in drug development. I am not involved, so I'll probably have a chit chat with them in the end. So a lot of other things like, you know, rare diagnosis treatment, even fraud detection, helping with insurance claims. That is one of the main pain points that we have from patients. Everything is done, I have to go, my insurance is not cleared. So that is again another area where AI and ML can help. Cyber security, of course, patient data privacy is much more valued than let's say you know, a Twitter or a Facebook privacy. So security is another application, especially catering to the healthcare domain. Robotics is a huge field in itself, but again needs a lot of upskilling from this level to get into robotics. So these are the major domains in which you can make a difference. Upcoming branches like cancer research is another area. So what are the, yes, I'm sorry. So I will start with a very common example, right? Why I chose skin, I am a cardiologist, but why did I choose skin as an example? Again, coming to the same theme, you can relate. You know, skin disease is something you can directly see, you can understand what's going on, and most of the diagnosis is visual, in the sense you see a pattern, okay, this color, this size, this happens over time, this is the diagnosis, right? You have an itching in this area, and then it looks like a, you know, very fuzzy gray-white lesion, it is a fungal infection. So it's a very visual kind of field. A lot of the diagnosis is visual. The dermatologists are excellent at pattern recognition. The moment they see the skin, they know, oh yeah, this is this. Of course, a lot of training required for that and for pattern recognition. But then there is one case scenario where even dermatologists find it a little difficult, where people with multiple nevi, the medical term is nevi, we commonly call it as the mole. Almost everybody will have marked your passport application saying which is, you know, what is a identification mark. So you would have marked this, but there is a problem. A subset of people have a lot of nevi, a lot of moles, and they are at higher risk of developing this one peculiar skin cancer, which is more common in the West, called melanoma. So melanoma is because melanin is not in skin coloration, so that forms an abnormal colored mole. And you see that this guy at baseline, that is his first visit, he has a multiple moles here. And this guy is at a higher risk of developing a cancer called melanoma. And the thing about melanoma is that the earlier you diagnose, it's completely curable. You know, you just take it out along with a you know, depth of little bit of fat underneath, and it's cured. It doesn't come back. But if you find it later, you can metastasize. I mean, it doesn't cause any pain. Let's say it's on the back, you can't see it. It may not cause an itch, but if it spreads before you diagnose that it has turned malignant, that is, it has become a cancer, then it can actually spread to your brain, livers, and it can be too late when you find it out. So people who are at risk, not everybody, these guys who are at higher risk because they have multiple melanomas, they need to be screened regularly, 6 months or 1 year, depending upon the guidelines and number of nevi and high risk features. And there is an AI app which helps do this on a systematic basis. So it takes a photo and then it compares again serially and then alerts the clinician like this, okay, have a look at this, this is not there before and this is cropped up now 6 months later, and there was another lesion here which was smaller but has grown in size. So these two aspects, so it has grown in size and that it has cropped up new. So these indicate that it is malignancy. So it is a cancerous, it's possible that it is a cancer. So we can go quickly, take a small piece of it, check it under the microscope and find if it is a malignancy. Now this is the photo based diagnosis, right? So let's go a little bit deeper into the problems that you can face when you use such a photo app. Let's say you have a specific lesion looking at it and then you want to diagnose whether it's a melanoma or not. Like, how many of you would agree that A and B are probably more of cancer than C and D? Please? Alright. And how many of you would say that G is a malignancy or a cancer? Alright. So take a look at this app called the Skin Vision app. It's actually available right now for use in the Western markets, which is an FDA approved device. So this one is a true positive. I hope all of you understand what are true positives, negatives, false positives and negatives, right? Yeah. So A and B is a true positive melanoma. You gave it to the app, it correctly told that it is a melanoma. And C and D is a false positively classified melanoma. In the sense it is not actually cancerous, but it said it's a cancer. So that can worry some people, right? And then you have E and F, which is true negative. They are not malignant and they are not cancerous. The app correctly said it is not cancerous. And G is a false negative. Actually, this is it's a cancer, but the app missed it, right? So you have the true positive and true negatives. That is what we want. We want 100% true positive and negative, but never happens in reality in any test. But then the app does reasonably well, more than 90% accuracy. Now quickly let's run through some of the other explanations. So I went a bit of into more details into what is involved in a Skin Vision app, but there are other apps out there. Like I just described a situation wherein you have a photo, right? What you can see is what is being diagnosed by the Skin Vision app. What does it help you with? Situations like where you have multiple nevi and it's easier for you to pick up rather than manually checking it. So that's where it will be useful. But what if you can do more? Like your vision is limited by the visible wavelength, but then the tools are not limited. The tools actually can do more. Spectroscopy, heard of spectroscopy? Yes. So you can use this technology to look beyond what is there in the visible spectrum. You can see the composition. You can have an understanding of what is there underneath. So this is what spectroscopy can do for you. So you can use vision and spectroscopy both combined together in one device. So here you have so many techniques involved. You have this visual aspect, you have the spectroscopy, and then you put it into a small handheld device also. So device manufacturing, product manufacturing, everything combined together to produce a handheld device which can detect 3 types of cancer. Now that's all it does. So you can't go and ask it whether I have acne or not, right? So that acne in common terms is pimple. So check out for me, is this pimple growing or not? So that can't be, that can't be answered by this. Whereas 3 types of cancers, squamous, adenocarcinoma and melanoma, don't bother about the names. These are the most common cancers of the skin and these can be addressed using this device. Then you have other apps like Skin.io, which takes the approach of telling the risk rather than telling you the diagnosis. So that's kind of better in the medical field because patients need not unnecessarily panic. This app just tells you go meet the doctor, that's it. So that approach is kind of the most popular one and that will find most applications in healthcare. Right? They have another device which uses 3D imaging and AI to map the entire body, right? So these are the some of the devices which are used in skin. There are a lot many more and these are the FDA approved ones. FDA is basically Federal Drug Authority, which is a regulatory body in the United States which approves drugs and devices. So device is approved by FDA means kind of it's a big deal. So it can be distributed through various markets including the European markets barring some extra regulations. So this is another app. This you can see that there is a computer screen and facing the doctor, and then a camera facing the patient, which can take the whole body, total body mapping. That is, it can map the entire body skin lesions and help identify suspicious lesions and follow them up. You can do like every 6 months or so, like we saw in the first example. And there is another app which does with your smartphones. No, you don't need a device, you don't need to go to the hospital. You have it on your smartphone these days. You use it, you can screen it, and it can actually categorize 588 skin conditions. That's staggering, right? But again, this probably needs further evaluation. There are many more applications. I won't go through each and every of them. I think this gave you a kind of a reasonable overview of what is a very nice, understandable and relatable application. So far going okay? The pace is okay? Anybody has any issues, please let me know. I can change the pace or the content delivery. No issues? Thank you. Alright, so this is a huge slide. Sorry for the entire, crowded slide, but I just want you to focus on this aspect. Like what I showed is basically like one aspect of it, right? I mean, we saw that you see a skin lesion, and then you diagnose it. So in the first slide we saw that medical diagnosis was one of the most interesting and impactful application of AI in healthcare. Of course it is, and it's very booming field, but that's not it. There are a lot of things that AI can help you with, right? There are a lot of challenges when you look at it from the aspect of a doctor or a hospital. You have not one patient coming in for you, you have hundreds and thousands of patients coming in, and you have to analyze each of them, solve all their problems starting from how they got there to till they are discharged. What is the disease, what are the treatment, are they receiving the treatment, are there any side effects? So many things are there with respect to healthcare, and we have to do it at scale for many hundreds of patients every day. Myself, I see around 40-50 patients on an average in OPD. Some days it gets crowded, and we do around 15-20 procedures in cath lab every day, and that's a huge amount of data to actually take in. So, and there are a lot of aspects that we have to take care of. So, right from selecting the patients to let's say acquiring the image, you get a better image, get the proper image for AI analysis, that can be improved again with AI. Making it diverse in the sense you build an app, you built it now that works in the United States for white skin, but what about India? Like we have dark skin, does it work? No, that again needs address. A lot of machine learning, and AI can go in there. Privacy issues we discussed in brief, a lot of other things, about accuracy and then regulations. Everywhere AI can help in. So there are a lot of tasks that are there in a workflow of a doctor, which AI can actually optimize, improve, or actually provide something new. Alright. Another popular example and premise for next question. Heard about it? iPhone, iWatch, Apple Watch? Yeah, Series 1. So the question states Series 1. So this is your AFib detection tool on your iPhone, which is paired with Apple Watch. So the original sensors, like I said, was photoplethysmography. The newer one has ECG, a single lead ECG. Typically what you see with your friends. Any of you have seen an ECG? ECG? Yeah, it's big, rectangular thing. It has 12 leads in it. So it has 12 independent recordings in it. Total duration for 10 seconds. Whereas this one just records a single lead because of limitation of the amount of sensors you can put on your hand and record. So it can detect several arrhythmias other than atrial fibrillation. You can diagnose even normal sinus rhythm, and they have made a feature where it says it's poor. Yeah, you have a question? Yes, of course. Please stand up, introduce yourself, and yeah, you can tell me the question, or you can come up. Am I audible? Yeah. So can we pass on mics in case others have questions? I am having a good time here, because if the people asking questions means they are listening, and they are listening and actually understanding what I am saying.
Is it advisable to keep nowadays we are getting pocket ECG, we can keep at home?
Yeah, I'll come to that. That's a good question. So similar question, I'll address his question first. So he asks, what if the veins or the blood vessels are blocked there? Can there be an accuracy issue? right? So those are very interesting question, very important question about accuracy. Now that's why we need to understand what is this tool used for, right? Let's say I am a doctor and you come to me and you come with some symptom and I strap this watch on you and wait for some time and then tell, okay, you don't have AF or you have AF, atrial fibrillation. Now that would be wrong because this is not the tool meant for that. Again, this is like a screening tool. It's like an early warning tool. It tells you, okay, there is a problem, go see somebody. So that is the position of the market. Like we discussed screening tests in detail, right? So the position is that. So the watch is for those people who may not know that they have this condition, and this one often doesn't have any symptoms. Often, like most of the people don't have symptoms. The heart rate goes very high and irregular, but people don't realize it. What it does cause in some people is some palpitations, but the major problem what we are worried with atrial fibrillation is something called as stroke. I believe you would have heard of stroke, where you have a paralysis of one side of the body. So when the heart rate becomes very irregular, you develop small clots within the heart which can go through the blood vessels to the brain, blood vessels of the brain, and kill part of your brain cells and produce weakness on one side of the body. So that is the dreaded complication of atrial fibrillation. If you have atrial fibrillation, you are like something like 5 or 10 fold higher risk of having stroke. And also there are other factors like age and diabetes status and heart conditions which come in. But then if you are having atrial fibrillation alone, that increases your chances of having stroke several fold. And you can be initiated on some medicines which can potentially reduce the chances significantly of developing a stroke in the future. And coming to this question of accuracy, now this photoplethysm, I'll just go a little bit into the anatomy. So there are veins and there are arteries. So arteries are the ones which carry blood away from the heart, and the veins carry blood towards the heart, and arteries are the only ones which pulsate, right? Veins don't pulsate. So if there is obstruction of the artery, and in atrial fibrillation we are looking at blood pulse, pulsing, right? So if there is an obstruction in the artery, invariably it produces problems. It causes pain. Let's say your artery is occluded, it causes pain in some of those areas, and then you would usually present. So probably that patient would have known that he has a problem in the hand. Obstruction of the veins which carry blood towards the heart will not affect the working of this app. So that's not an issue with this app. And most importantly, to answer your question, these days the ECG based one, it tells you that, okay, I don't know what it is, I found something, it doesn't look okay, but it's probably poor recording or inconclusive. We say, I have some problem, but I don't know what it is. So the patient can go and check out with the doctor what he has. So these are the ways that they address these problems. And to bring this into the market, there is a huge study called the Apple Heart Study, and there are several studies preceding it, like involving around 4 lakh people registered on it. Registered there. It was a voluntary kind of registration where people with Apple Watches could go and register themselves on the study. So huge studies are actually backing up such very simple apps. If you look at it, what it diagnoses, it's only a fast heart rate and irregular heart rate. That's it. It's very simple to diagnose. That's why they don't touch other arrhythmias, right? Other things are very complex to diagnose. You can't pick it up like this. So that's why they don't touch all those arrhythmias for popular culture. But we will have medical devices which can do that, right? But it will be, the market will be only for the doctors or the hospitals which are using it. So this is for the population out there, so it restricts itself to things which you can do really accurately, proven and backed up by research studies. Yeah. So let's, I forgot your question. Oh yeah, too expensive, and chances of a random person selected from here having an arrhythmia is very less. Actually, it's close to 0%, but then today morning we had one guy fall down, so it's not clearly 0, but then we don't know to whom and when it will happen. Of course, it will be helpful if you can wear all these gadgets all the time. These days it is about personal digital devices recording your data all the time, but honestly speaking, as a doctor, if you give me all this data and ask me what to do with it, like what will I do with it? Like, I don't know. Right? Many of the things, like you give me a recording of yours, let's say for 100 days and have a look at it. There's this minor problem which is being shown up. We don't have studies for that. So this is in period of evolution, like people coming in with data which they can record, But what do we do with it? A lot of studies are needed to prove, okay, if you detect this arrhythmia in a random person at this frequency, need not do anything. Or if this crosses this particular threshold, then okay, you do something. So this will come up, that's a very relevant question, this will come up. Maybe you will see advanced diseases, advanced devices which can, like with IoTs coming in place, maybe you can have a ring, many of you wear chains and rings and watches. If you have three things recording from different aspects, the electrical activity of the heart, you have multiple lead ECGs. Now this is limited to a single lead, like I said. You have multiple leads. Now you get closer to the diagnostic ECG that we discussed, right? Then you have more possibilities. Maybe in the future we'll have all these things, but right now it's not there.
So I think that is not FDA.
I couldn't. Who was asking?
So I think that is not FDA that I watch.
Which one? Apple Watch? No, FDA approves device for medical applications. This is a popular application, so they need not worry about this part. Yeah, it will take a lot of time. FDA has its own regulations. We will probably briefly touch that when we come to challenges and ethics, right? Okay, so that is about another popular application that you all are familiar with, so that's why I put it in the front. But that's not it. That's for the patient, right? I mean, you are wearing it and you get to know what is happening, and then you go to the doctor. But then what can we use? Like what can I do in my workflow to improve my efficiency or accuracy on diagnosis, or improve my treatment, or inform the patients better about what can they expect in the future. We call this prognosis. What can we expect in the future? So this is another area where AI and ML can help in. So you can see that there are various diseases like heart failure, which can help with preventing heart failure admissions. That's a project I am working on where we are trying to predict this ahead so that hospitalization can be reduced. And then there is preventive cardiology, wherein you are, let's say, crossing 40 and you would like to know whether you are at higher risk because one of your relatives has heart disease. Maybe ML can help with that, with prediction part. Prediction is a very tough game. I don't have enough time to address that particular area in this presentation, but that's something you can do with ML and AI. And then you have all these tools. Now you see me as a doctor, medical doctor here, but I'm doing this course, so probably I'm more technology aware than other doctors out there. But then doctors use technology all the time. They are end users of a lot of technology, right? And a lot of physics too in that, especially in cardio. In my daily tool, I have something called as echocardiography, cardiac CT, cardiac MRI, magnetic resonance imaging, that is, and CT is computed tomography. CAT scans, what you have heard of, is what we call as CT. And then you have ECG that we just discussed, ECG monitoring, and then there is advanced electrophysiology also, which we do in a lab. And of course, there's this common, everybody knows this angioplasty, which I do. The most common procedure that I do is placing a stent. So, and that uses a lot of technology like intravascular imaging, that is, you can actually go into the blood vessel and use ultrasound waves to see around the wall, right? So, pretty cool stuff, pretty interesting technology is there in healthcare, and a lot to understand, a lot to digest also. So, this is another technology wherein you can place an entire valve inside the heart. So, have you heard of something called Doppler effect? Most of you would have heard it. Doppler effect, anybody? Yes. This is one of the commonest things we use every day. Where you find an actual real life application of Doppler effect is in echocardiography. A part of it is Doppler, wherein we see the velocities of how blood is moving in and out of various parts of the heart. Based on that, we know, okay, this is normal speed and this is abnormal. So if the speed is abnormal, the pressure is abnormal. So pressure is abnormal, this is the problem. So that's how we use physics in our daily life, and a lot of physics is involved behind an MRI. An amazing invention, and a lot of applications, a lot of physics involved in this. Now we are in that era wherein we have AI and machine learning fine-tuning these applications, right? MRI is already an advanced technology, and on top of that you can layer AI to improve the diagnostic accuracy, the image quality, and other things like automatic diagnosis, which we'll see in an example also. So, are we on time? So this is brief introduction about echocardiography. So things that you can do terms which are common, understandable to you will start here. You have classification, you have optimization, you can do some calculations of volume automatically, and you can identify the structures and probably the disease also. So you can improve image quality by saying, is it a good quality or a bad quality? Is this, which section are you looking at? Which angle are you looking at? All those can be automatically identified, and you can actually mark the boundaries inside so that you can accurately calculate the volume inside the heart. One of the commonest application we use is how much blood goes into the heart and how much does it pump out. We call this ejection fraction, right? Ejection fraction is one of the most validated measures in cardiology, which is used for almost everything. So just a single number, the normal being around 60%. If it's low, it means that your heart is pumping, not pumping normally. So what we do is we calculate the volume inside the heart in diastole when it fills up, and then we calculate the volume at the end of systole, that is after the pump is finished. So you see the difference, and then you calculate a fraction of it. That's called ejection fraction. And now it seems very easy, but then it's actually volume that you need to measure. But you can see from these images, these are all cross-sectional images. These are single slices, right? These are not volumes. So we use various formulae, again backed up by research, that this 2D method actually validates, is good enough for us in the clinical practice. But then 3D would be much better. Actually, the gold standard for EF measurement is MRI, and that uses 3D volume because it has the entire 3D volume inside. That information is there inside that you can calculate the volume and ejection fraction. You can see the accuracy, how AI can improve. Like a normal detection using the current technology, you have a lot of digital signal processing technologies which can actually pick up the boundary without AI or ML, but then see what AI can do. See, this boundary is actually not a smooth one. It actually goes like this inside. It's an irregular surface inside the heart, right? So it actually marks it to such great accuracy. You can see that it goes in and picks up each and every crevice. So that's what you can do. Like imagine the improvement in accuracy that you can get with just this EF measurement, which is done every day. We measure around 200, 300 ejection fractions every day. Now see how much impact we can have when we can improve the accuracy there, right? And similarly, you have something called the strain echo, which is much more advanced. I really can't fit that in a 2-minute explanation, so I'll skip that part. So yeah, so another entirely different field, close to mine. I do some interventions, but surgery is a different ball game. So you can see that AI, this one's not playing. Okay, I'm sorry, I had a couple of videos to play, but then it's not playing. Alright. So AI is used in various parts of surgery, right? You know what a surgery is. Some of you have got your appendix removed or your gallbladder removed for some stones. So we go in, we have to accurately identify the structure, remove only that part and then come out, and there are a lot of other surgeries that can happen. But I just told that to tell you the steps in all. So we need to plan, like where is the structure located, how big is it close to some important structures, am I going to hit a blood vessel when I go in? Especially these days with the laparoscopy, you don't actually open up a lot, you do minimally invasive, you go with only 2 or 3 ports, what we call, and we use these ports to navigate inside. It's like, you can imagine like 2 or 3 sticks which go up, and then you need to know these structures in detail to minimize the injuries, right? To minimize the injuries to blood vessels or the organ itself. So this AI can help in preoperative planning. During the surgery, current days with AR, augmented reality applications, people are actually planning to project the entire patient's actual imaging data onto the surgical field so that you can see what is happening. And then you have teams from different locations who can pitch in on a complex surgery also. And also another important application is training doctors in surgery. Instead of training on real patients and increasing the complication rate, you can actually train on virtual devices. That's again an area where AI finds a lot of application. Oh yeah, the video is playing now. So you can see that this is like basically an augmented reality wherein you can see the patient's actual spine being corrected, and it indicates the places wherein the needles have to go And another example where you see a brain tumor, very complex. You have to be very precise in isolating these tumors and removing them. If you miss your mark, you may injure major structures in the brain, which may ruin your speech or movement of your arm or something. So that's another area where AI can help. And the same thing people are actually projecting onto the surgical field. So you have other automated systems where, this is the example I told you about. It detects the object, it tells, okay, this is your scissor and this is a blood vessel and this is the structure you are planning to remove, but stay away from this structure. So something like that. And also it can give you some conceptual ideas, in the sense it can actually tell you that these are the boundaries of liver and this is the boundary of another organ, and this you see is something that you need to work on. So these applications are actually in progress. They are not yet approved or available yet, but these are all the possibilities available out there. So there are some devices which are actually, these are all from the FDA site itself. So they are all FDA approved in the current era. There is a neat little device for wound management. So when you have these burns or wounds, this helps you in serial monitoring and helps you decide whether the patient needs any removal of dead tissues or do you need to wait, and what kind of antibiotics to prescribe. All this help can be got with Mimosa Pro. And then there is a device called surgical sponge counting. Surprising thing is, the most common reason for complications post surgery is retained surgical sponges. So when you do a surgery, you use a lot of sponge to remove the blood and other stuff and then throw it out. But then there is a chance that the surgeon might miss one of these sponges, which are quite small sometimes and soaked in blood, so you can't actually differentiate. So the nurse actually keeps the count of how many sponges were used and how many were removed, and she has to give the go ahead, and the doctor has to say, okay, all of them are removed, before coming out of the patient and closing the wound, right? So, but then that's actually a major problem point. Not very common these days, but if you are a patient, you don't want that, right? So basically that's somewhere even AI is trying to help out. There is another imaging technology. We'll just watch a brief video of this. This is a technology which uses endoscopic surgery. This is a microsurgery device. So wherein you can actually see, this is for the food pipe based tumors, wherein you can go inside. This is the stomach where it's coming. This is the device which is coming, coming in, sending in a probe, and then it has this nice thing rotating, which tells, it inflates a balloon, and then there's a imager, the scanner, which rotates and gives you cross sections. That is, it slices everything in a photo manner and shows you what is there on the wall, right? So imagine a normal endoscope would actually go in and just tell you what is on the surface of the pipe, inside surface of the pipe. But then actual problem is in the wall, right? So the wall has the tumor, or wall has some suspicious lesions, which AI can actually auto segment and mark and tell you, okay, this looks problematic, take a piece from there, and that will give you the highest diagnostic accuracy, wherein you are suspecting a patient to have a malignancy, right? In early stage malignancy, this can be used, and this particular device actually for planning the surgery, to know how much to remove while doing the surgery. So this is another tool which helps surgeons real time, right? Yeah. So now moving from clinical applications. Now all this while we discussed a lot of clinical applications, in the sense, as I am a clinician, in the sense I see patients, I treat them, and I told you already that this is not complete healthcare. We have friends from our pharma who are in drug development. They never see a patient, but they are very much part of healthcare, integral part of healthcare. So we will see few examples in these non-clinical domains, what we call, right? Non-clinical domains. So anybody heard of CRISPR? It made a big this thing. I've already written the Nobel Prize. That could have been a question. Yeah. All right. So it won the Nobel for chemistry in 2020. It's a neat little. It's literally futuristic. You know DNA, right? Most of you don't know DNA. The code of life. Yeah. So almost everything that we are is coded within this double standard thing called DNA. And then these can have something known as mutations. These are actually stacked up billions of nucleotides, what we call. These are small molecules which are stuck up together and form a double helix. But then these code for proteins in our body. So these DNAs help make proteins. These proteins are the different things that function, like there is a protein which is called an enzyme which helps to digest food, or a protein like insulin which helps you regulate your blood sugar. Almost a lot of function in the body is done by proteins, and you could actually go in, cut the DNA in places where you find interesting, and then replace it with something else. Now this genetic scissors has given us great capabilities, and actually this was isolated from a bacterium called Streptokinase pyogenes. What you see here is actually the entire CRISPR-Cas9 complex. So how does ML come in here? How does machine learning come into this picture? Now imagine this DNA I said is like billions of lines of code, right? Billions of code. So you need some automatic way to actually know where to go and cut it, right? There are many methods which are non-ML possible, but it's very time consuming. But you can imagine as machine learning students that if you have an automatic way of matching patterns or predicting patterns, that would be very great, and that will help you go and cut it at the right place. So where there is a problem, you go around it, cut that place, and then replace it with a normal segment. So that is what is possible, and they have already built some tools. I am not sure if they are approved or not. I have not checked that because it is completely out of my domain. And there is something called as deep CRISPR, which applies deep learning to help predict these guide RNAs, which help you go and locate that part of the DNA where you need to cut, right? And there are a lot of other applications too. And the mind-boggling one, which I actually discovered while making this presentation, is a recent development called Open CRISPR-1. So large language models, you have heard large language models, all of you? Great. So what these guys did is actually they created a protein language model, right? So for large language model, you went on the internet, you took all the text available, and then you scraped it, and then you learnt over it, and then you are predicting excellent, with very high accuracy, and you have applications like ChatGPT, which is changing the world. But then at the molecular level, they actually learnt it on the entire protein database of humankind and animals, and then now the machine, the model knows how the protein looks, right? And then and the DNA, protein, and all the biological molecules, how they look, and they called it the protein language model. And this helps create new CRISPRs. In a sense, creating this molecule is not easy, to be precise, and very accurate in where you want to cut. So it helps a lot in making these new molecules and speeds up the process tremendously. So this is another revolution which has come up. We'll see a lot of applications of Open CRISPR-1 in the near future. So like I said, this is far away from clinical, but then the application is quite clinical. Heard of xenotransplantation? Yes, please. Excellent. Your name? Anirudh. Give him a hand, applause please. Correct answer. So that's wherein you take organs from a different species and put it in a different species. Like for example, kidney transplant is the commonest transplant that we see across the world, and there are a lot of patients with chronic kidney diseases awaiting transplants, and organ availability is a real serious issue. And I'll take this opportunity to plead to you to look at organ donation aspects, and that will help out a lot of patients. Coming to the other way to solve this problem, it is to use this CRISPR gene editing to actually create these pigs which resemble you, right? You start with the embryo, you actually grow this pig which is genetically similar to you. Why do you need this? Because in transplant, the most common problem is you put in an organ from another person, another human being, it gets rejected, right? Why it gets rejected? Because the body sees it as foreign. It throws its immune power behind it, it just destroys the organ, and that leads to failure of the entire transplant, the entire cost, and even the patient can die because it's part of your body and you are actually mounting a response to that organ. It can actually kill the patient. So what we do is actually use immunosuppressants. So we use something to suppress your immune power. We use medicines so that your immune does not fight this organ. But then what happens if you suppress the immune power? You are now exposed to all kinds of infections. So one of the most common problems transplant patients faces is infections because their immune power is down due to medicines. So this is the trade-off, right? So it's a neat little solution, right? You use CRISPR, you take a pig which is genetically quite different from you. You take off the parts of the genes which make it different and put in human genes there. Now the gene looks very much like a human gene, and the proteins and structures it produces will be similar to a human. They can make it very much similar to yours, grow this pig up, and then transplant the pig's organ, kidney or even heart for that matter has been transplanted in recent times. And there are 69 gene edits made in a single pig to make a kidney transplant possible, right? So these 69 gene edits are actually quite low. If you have a species which is quite different, you may have to do many more edits, and you can see, now you can understand how complex this process is and what kind of data it involves, right? And that's how machine learning can help you to narrow down and make sure you are editing the right genes and you are doing the correct changes so that the pig is very similar to yours, and that helps avoid this immune suppressing drugs, right? So AI has a lot of applications in there too. So familiar, protein folding from pharma, heard about it? No, it's one step probably before that. Drug discovery, can you just tell the audience what drug discovery is? Briefly, I'll take a break. So thank you for that wonderful explanation. He actually put out the entire process of drug development to drug coming to the market. Thank you so much. So why I wanted to touch upon in that is drug discovery part of it. Like now all of you are comfortable with vector spaces, high dimensional vector spaces, n dimensional vector spaces, all of you have read it, right? So imagine you have these very complex 3D molecules, right? And they are actually coded by something called they actually have a single strand of amino acids. Sometimes the multiple strands come together, but it's a series of small molecules coming together called amino acids. So they form a strand, but the strand per se in its native form is not very useful for us. What it does to function normally, it folds upon itself and forms a very precise shape, and the shape determines a lot of its function. So that's called protein folding. And a large part of drug discovery, especially drugs which are proteins themselves, like you have the GLP-1 agonists for insulin, for diabetes, or you have insulin itself which is actually a protein, right? You can imagine the space, like the kind of space you are looking at. Let's say you have 1000 amino acids, right? These typical small proteins have 1000 amino acids. Imagine what are the, like we have around 20 amino acids and 1000 amino acids in a single protein strand, imagine that. And what are the possibilities? Like how many different strands can form and how many different ways can they fold in, right? It's a huge space to navigate, and this kind of fits right in the niche of deep learning or machine learning, and that's where it finds a very incredible application. Finding a new drug is not easy. You know how they find new drugs? Some very superficial explanation is, you have some problem, you throw something at it and see if it works. So that's the first step, right? Did I get it right, the analogy? Yes. So basically, how many things can you throw at it, right? So I'll write something here and I'll ask somebody to erase it. Like all of you can do it, right? But let's say there are a lot of animals also in the space, but I don't know like which protein works. But when I ask, it has to be the human who comes in. So this space is huge, right? This space is huge, and the protein folding problem is a huge problem, and we have cracked it using, not me, humankind has cracked it using a technology from DeepMind called the AlphaFold. So the initial versions could predict only the structure, right? It could tell if you give it a sequence of amino acids from beginning to end, like say A, D, C, B, I'm just using some random code, A, D, C, B, X, E, F, G, H, something, thousands of this, and then you ask it how will it look when it folds in the human body, that it could do, right? That itself was a great innovation. What's even more mind-boggling is a newer version called AlphaFold 3. I think just this year they published it in Nature, and there is a lot of controversy around sharing data behind the code behind AlphaFold 3. You can read about it. and it can predict its function also. How the protein folds and then how does it actually interact with other molecules and work. So this is what it can do now. So this is actually a very quite mind-boggling application, and he can already think of ways in which he can put it to use to develop new drugs, right? Yeah, so it's quite interesting, and its main implication is drug design. You can actually say this is the disease part and you design a protein for it, and probably in one day you can actually print it out, right? That's the kind of technology we are looking at. I'll just briefly touch upon this. Digital twin is not specific for healthcare. Digital twin is there in many fields. Have you anybody heard of digital twin? No? Yeah. So what you can do actually create entire virtual patients, right? He spoke about virtual drug testing platform, right? You have something where you can virtually test whether two molecules connect, will they function as expected, right? But what if you had an entire real world patient who can be copied into a digital twin, right? Now you throw a drug at him, like he spoke about human trials, animal trials, 4 phases of human trials, approvals, 10 years we are looking at, right? 15 years. Now imagine if you had a digital twin, right? You won't need animal testing, agreed? You won't need animal testing because you test on animals because you don't want to put it in any human, healthy volunteers or anybody. You don't want any side effect. Imagine if you had a digital twin and you can just touch this drug directly on him, and that can cut short your animal testing phase 5 years, 2 years, 2 years. It can cut down 2 years, and probably a lot of phase 1 and 2 development also possibly can be cut down using this, because typically they involve just seeing whether this drug has any side effects or not, or working, the dose is okay or not. These are the kind of things that we are testing. So many years of actually testing for drugs can be cut down using such technologies. And one of the most relatable example in this field would be COVID-19 vaccines, right? COVID-19 vaccines, all of you have had? All of you have had? Great. So all of us were through the pandemic, very tough times, can't go out, and you are scared that you might actually contract COVID and die. And we are scrambling to develop, the world is scrambling to develop a vaccine, and then there is our friend sitting there, 15 years. 15 years, no less, no more, he tells. Now I'm just, yes, see. So, and how many regulations were actually thrown out because of for vaccine development, right? Because at that time, humanity needed something immediately, like in, let's say, 6 months or 1 year. That was, I don't know how many people appreciate this, but it gives me goosebumps just to realize this thing, that this vaccine was developed in such a short period, and our country actually put it on 270 crore, they have given 270 crore vaccinations to our population. That's a tremendous achievement, right? How did, imagine that you have another pandemic and you have these technologies ready, like how much benefit you will have. Like you have a virus, you use all these technologies, this virus comes in, we already have ways to know what are the proteins which are causing harmful, spike protein, everybody, COVID-19 spike protein, right? You know the spike protein structure, you simply design a drug using the protein folding algorithms, you design a drug which can precisely attack the spike protein, make an antibody, test it on a digital twin, bring it out to market very fast, right? This, it's not been there, it's a very, very probable future, not a possible future, it is a very probable future, right? So that's where we are at. That's where we are at. This is, pardon me for so many slices in the pies, BDM guys will be freaking out, but I just made it in haste. This is to show you that of all the applications that we saw and what we are going to see, the most common application is actually radiology. Radiology is wherein you read images, so medical images is what drives this entire AI ML market in healthcare currently. It is 75 or 80% of the applications something currently, and this pie chart is made from the FDA approved devices database. Devices, this is not drugs, this is FDA approved devices or algorithms. There are around 886 or 880 odd applications available as of May 13th, and the stat is made out of that, and you can see that radiology is the highest. The second biggest pie is cardiovascular, 10%. 10% is still a huge number, by the way. And a lot of our applications is actually related to cardiac CT, cardiac MRI, echocardiogram, which gets classified as radiology. So cardiology actually is a bigger part of the pie than what is shown in this, right? Alright. And to come to the newer technologies, so all this time we were speaking mainly about something called as discriminative AI. We saw the protein language model, which is actually generative AI. Other than that, most often we see something called discriminative AI, wherein we give some problem, we ask it an answer, yes or no, discriminate this versus that. This is the major application. You give it an image, say disease is there or not. You give it an image and ask it whether this is liver or not, this is spleen or not. This is how we are working. But then you know that the generative AI, the large language models, have taken the world by storm in 2022 November, ChatGPT, right? 22 November, yeah, it's not very far away. So we have had all kinds of applications in your regular life, but a lot of can be done in healthcare domain also using that. We have discussed many of these aspects already. I won't go into details. A lot of examples discussed already. So electronic medical records is something I'll just briefly touch upon. A daily work of mine involves a lot of writing. Ask patients questions, note down what they had, what diseases they had in the past, what allergies they had, what are the medicines they are taking currently, what are the problems they have currently, what tests they have done outside, what the test has been done inside, what images they have. All this has to be documented, all the reports have to be documented. A lot of writing work is there. Some people do that while typing, but that's not a very efficient way at all. In fact, in the US, electronic medical records is mandated by law, but not in India. In India, you don't have to actually record them electronically, you can just write it in a piece of paper. But in US, in hospitals, you have to implement electronic medical records, wherein you have to maintain these databases, and there is a lot of vendors which are available, but it's a mess. And most common cause for physician, that is doctor burnout in the United States, is entering data into electronic medical records. So that's a huge pain point that is being addressed by a lot of people in the generative AI space. So imagine a world wherein patient comes in, we are sitting having a discussion, we take the consent of the patient of course for this process, and as we chat, the latest ChatGPT 4.0, anybody tried? Yes, great. So 4.0 can actually listen to this audio, discriminate the people in it, give me a transcript of what is given, and then use further AI technologies to extract important points of the information. I may be speaking a lot with him, including his shirt color or preferences or his pronouns and all that, but I can take out the important parts of it and put it in my database. That will solve a lot of problem for me. So that is somewhere a lot of people are putting in their time, efforts and money behind, and that if we can solve that problem efficiently, that will be, and some of you can do it, I'll pay you lots of money, because that's a big pain point for me. So that's something I wanted to discuss. So one case study I wanted to do. Do you guys have the energy to do it? Yes, great, thank you. All right, I'll just take a sip of water. So idea to implementation, we'll discuss a case study. We go from we take one single problem. Again, because I said the imaging domain is the most common application for healthcare, I have taken an example from there. Just go through the problem statement and I'll start with that. I think there is a quiz question coming up, so be ready. Done? So what is the problem that we are solving? We want to detect pneumonia. It's an infection in the lungs. I hope you all know what are lungs. So pneumonia is one of the most common problems for which people get admitted, especially in the rainy season. So lot of cases come in this. If I go back to my hospital now, lot of ICU cases will be with pneumonia. So X-rays and CT scans are commonly done to detect pneumonia, and the doctor has to actually read each and every of these images himself with high accuracy to treat patients, diagnose pneumonia and then treat them, right? And we also do serial X-rays to see improvement also. So we can use the current technologies to solve this problem. How, we'll see. So the major steps are, first is problem definition that we just did, we'll go through it again maybe. So we define the problem precisely, and if we are using machine learning techniques, the objective has to be very clear on what data you are going to use and what are you going to look for and how are you going to evaluate that. So all this has to be there. Standard steps of principles of machine learning, of course. And a lot of other steps which gets added here compared to all your general problems. In healthcare, you start with ethical and regulatory clearances like you mentioned. That's the main reason for delay in healthcare related problem solutions. You start with data collection, involves a lot of consent and stuff. We'll be touching that in another part. And then this is an important step. All the images carry your identifying information. Patient name Priya, 25-year-old female, right? You don't want that out there, right? It should not be in a database, and somebody gets to know that you are admitted with pneumonia. It may help affect your employment, or it may affect some other, it may create some other problem for you. So we remove all the identifiable details. That's first important step. And then we label each of the images. It depends on what labeling you do, depends on the task. In this particular task, we are identifying pneumonia. So it will suffice to tell whether this X-ray has pneumonia or no pneumonia, and maybe you can say COVID pneumonia, not COVID pneumonia, or normal X-ray or no abnormality, right? So this should be enough. That kind of labeling has to be done by the doctors on the training data. And then of course quality evaluation, you train and test splits that you commonly do in machine learning. If you have not learned about it, don't worry, you will be learning a lot about it. Then this is the most interesting part for almost all of you. So model building, designing, training, evaluation, tuning, and then validating the model, right? And then the biggest hurdle to deploy is, biggest hurdle in healthcare is actually the deployment and maintenance part. Again, we'll come to that. So just as a rise of hands, among these different colors, blue, red, green, and brown, which is the most time consuming? By a show of hands, who thinks blue is the most time consuming? What about green? Time consuming. What about red? Oh, great. What about brown? Yeah. So most of you got it right. This is by far the most difficult part. I would say in a typical deep learning projects that we are doing, more than 2/3 of the work involves data collection, marking the data, ensuring the data quality is there, getting the necessary permissions, and then starting model development design. Actually, this part forms only maybe less than 1/3 of your work, maybe 20% of your work. This one is it's difficult but not very time consuming. It's pretty difficult, but it also consumes time, probably more than this, but this is by far the most time consuming process in entire medical image solutions. So you define a problem statement. In this case, we want to give a X-ray or a CT scan or both to a model, and then ask it to spit out an answer whether there is pneumonia or not, right? So this is what we do. We give it an input, that is an image, and then we ask it to give this is a model, that's ChexNet, and this is the output that it produced. This is the actual output that we are interested in. Pneumonia is positive with 85% accuracy, confidence. That's the probability it gave. So it's likely that 85% it is pneumonia. And you can see that it's actually true because this part of the lung is actually having some infection, whereas this side is all okay and this part is okay. So this is the actual infection part and it has actually marked. So I touched upon most of these aspects. I'll skip through it. So it involves a lot of steps to collect data and prepare it for medical image classification tasks. A lot of biases can be there. Generalizability is an important issue that you need to address because you may work in a hospital, you may have a particular X-ray machine which takes X-rays, and that actually might influence your results and not pneumonia per se. And there are a lot of workarounds that will come to that again. So this is one step I wanted to touch upon to improve the generalizability of the models and also accuracy. So instead of giving it the full X-ray, which includes all these markings, let's say A or some other markings here, you know how this can affect classification is, let's say one particular hospital puts some data like this here for all its X-rays, right? And you have another hospital there which doesn't have this, it has something else written there. And it happens that 90% of the hospital A's cases had pneumonia and 90% of the hospital B's cases did not have pneumonia. And if you actually use the entire image, this is a very simple example, it may actually use this to classify, right, with a 90% accuracy. So that's what CNNs can do. They can pick up any part of the image. We don't know. It's not actually, we cannot understand what is going on inside CNN, right? So it can actually do this and use this to actually classify. So one way to address that would be, okay, look at only the lungs. Okay, you do this. You first mark the lungs, and then go ahead and classify. So this is what we do. So we take X-ray images. We tell we don't want all this. Pneumonia doesn't happen here. Doesn't happen here. Doesn't happen in the stomach. It's only the lungs. So let's segment out the lungs and learn only that, and then see whether there is pneumonia, and accuracy improves. Not only that, generalizability also improves a little bit, right? And for even this segmentation task, which used to be very manual, there are a lot of algorithms out there which can simply segment your lungs out for you. Kumar is here. Ravi, where is he? Yeah. So he was just telling me about how he is implementing something called as SAM, right? That is actually generative AI. Segment anything model, right? Like you have large language model, give it ask it any story, it will give you anything in text form. But segment anything model, give it any medical image, it will segment out organs for you and label it and give it to you. So that's what is available out there. But of course, a typical learning task would involve quality control. So a lot of this task is done manually to train, and he was actually saying that a lot of investment and money goes into actually manually marking these images to make them suitable for deep learning tasks. So that's why I said that's a time consuming process, data preparation, right? And this is a similar segmentation, and this is a CT image. CT image is a volumetric image, and this is one, you can see that these are different sections. To just give you an idea, if you cut it here, here and here, you get these images, right? You can see top of the lung, middle of the lung, base of the lung. So you can see why it looks like that here, right? You cut it like this here and then see it like this. So CT, that in CTs you have entire stack of images, not one image, but entire stack of, let's say, 300, 400 images stacked upon each other, and you have to collect information from all of them to make a single diagnosis, pneumonia is there or not. So each slice has to be segmented out, and we say that only lungs can have pneumonia, so we have taken out only that, right? So far we have come across the problem statement. We defined it that we want to classify pneumonia. We said we'll use CT, or we'll use an X-ray image. We told that we'll segment it, we'll tell you where the lung is, and we'll tell you what is the answer, is there a pneumonia or not. This is the training data, right? So this is unsupervised or supervised learning? Louder. Yeah, exactly. So that's why I started with, this is the most common applications that you find in medical tasks, supervised learning. So that's where we are. Now we have prepared the data, now we want to design a model. So our quiz question addressed this. The most common approach used is a convolutional neural network, wherein you have a lot of, it's a deep learning model. It involves a lot of artificial neurons, what we call them. Starting from input, then we have a lot of hidden layers, and then you have an output layer, which is the classifier, right? A lot of work goes on in this hidden layer, and that is where the magic of deep learning comes in. Because although the overall task is a classification task, the deep learning model actually learns certain low level features in an unsupervised manner, right? So the initial steps of the convolution is actually kind of unsupervised. You are not telling it what to learn. It learns some important aspects. Maybe it correctly learns that, okay, that is the part of the chest which has pneumonia, like we saw in that example, and then it learns, okay, this is why I should call it as pneumonia, but we are not able to see it. Hopefully that is what it learns. We actually, to be honest, we don't know many of the times what it's learning. That's why I gave you that example of different hospitals having different marks on X-rays affecting the results, right? And then you have a lot of layers in that which gives you an output. So this is CNN. I'm not going into details of a CNN because the entire crowd is in foundational deep and diploma level. You have to get to deep learning, at least finish machine learning to appreciate the nuances. But I'll just touch upon the common models that you have used. Many of you have heard this in deep learning course, VGG19, right? ResNet, GoogleNet, LayNet, all this you have learned. So see the applications, it's actually there, real life applications are actually there for these deep learning models already. And of course, these have to be further tuned. They are all trained in something called as the ImageNet database, which is a huge database of general purpose images, not medical images. You have to actually use that and use this process called transfer learning to learn what is this learned from that general database to medical images, right? It has learned feature extraction, but use it in medical images. Similar thing is used in your ChatGPT for fine tuning. Olama, anybody has used Olama? Ola Maya. You've deployed small models on your computers, right? And you've heard about RAG, retrieval augmented generation. Excellent. So can you tell me something about fine tuning? Little bit about fine tuning so that I can take a break. Exactly. Thank you. What's your name? Applauses for him. So that's what we do in fine tuning. We take a model which knows something, like you take a base large language model like ChatGPT 3.5 Turbo, and then you fine tune it. You tell it, okay, you will learn a little bit more on this particular data set which is not available out there, right? Fine tuning involves a lot of expenses, so there are workarounds, and you do something called retrieval augmented generation. There are a lot of technologies out there, but why I am touching this? Fine tuning is something you use in these networks also. There is something called transfer learning basically. So you take a pre-trained model, retrain it on your data and make it accurate on your model. So I'll just briefly touch upon other models that are used while using these technologies. So we saw that we wanted to classify, right? But can we do more? Like for example, let's say a patient gets an X-ray done and you use this VGG16 or a fine-tuned version of another CNN to classify it as normal X-ray or TB X-ray, or it has pneumonia, and then use this pneumonia X-ray, run it through another model, because now it has been filtered, right? Let's say hopefully only 10% had pneumonia. Those 10% can undergo a classification using a DenseNet 161 into pneumonia, normal pneumonia, that is usual bacterial, or it's a COVID pneumonia. And then on those patients with COVID, you can use another model, let's say ResNet, and then say how severe the pneumonia is. So it's an ensemble. So ensemble of 3 different CNN models starting from a patient's X-ray going on to tell severity of COVID, right? So that's why I was telling about going through steps, discriminative AIs, 1 discriminative AI, 2 discriminative AI, 3 discriminative AIs put together to answer a complex question. But why don't we directly do this? This is difficult to do. You can't learn this directly because you have a lot of normal X-ray, it will come out as mild COVID or medium COVID or severe COVID, because the model can't learn that much on the limited data set. So that's why we use this ensemble methods. And then you can even use serums for serial follow-up, patient with COVID, first X-ray, a week later and later, maybe a month later, and see how much he has recovered using the same CNN multiple times. We saw multiple CNNs ensemble, now you have same CNN. Use different times on the same patient to tell recovery, right? And those who answered generative AI for the previous questions, generative AI, yeah. So you're not very wrong, so that's what I was coming here. So vision transformers are transformer architectures. It's part of generative AI family, which helps in classifying chest X-rays into pneumonia using the transformer architecture. It's a recent development. These are very early. These are all papers published this year. So there are problems with those approaches. We will not get into the details, but they are coming up, right? And then there are other attention. You have heard about attention, right? Attention mechanism. Year in which attention mechanism paper came out. Come on guys, like I am from medical background, I am not even from here. Attention mechanism, which year? 2017. Good answer, excellent. So 2017 is when attention mechanism, the landmark paper came out, and then ChatGPT used this mechanism to deploy the ChatGPT chatbot in 2022, so 4.5 years later, right? So coming to the last part of this case study, so we saw so far that we collected a lot of images, did a lot of segmentation, marked them, annotated them, said these are the labels that you need to learn, and then we learned it through different kind of model architectures. Probably you chose one CNN for now, and now you want to evaluate this model, right? So there are a lot of evaluation models, methods available. The common ones for classification tasks are accuracy, precision, recall, and F1 scores, of course. You will learn about these in your course, don't worry about if you don't understand what I am talking about. But for segmentation task, have you learned the segmentation correctly? Like I asked you to mark the lung, have you accurately marked the lung, or have you included a lot of other chest wall and shoulder bones in it? You have to come up with a way to actually evaluate that. So for that you have a variation of F1 score for segmentation task known as dice similarity coefficient. and another one called Jaccard index or intersection over union. These are commonly used methods. Heard about them yet? Not yet? Ravi? No. So you will come to that in later part after you deploy your, after you build your models. So you will be using a lot of this to analyze segmentation part, especially if you are using SAM. We would like to know what is the DSC score of SAM compared to a CNN that is already available like UNet for segmentation tasks. The deployment, right? Now this is something which is a little interesting. So you have developed this model, you evaluated it, it's quite useful, it's pretty accurate. Of course you can't get 100% accuracy. Now you want your hospitals and doctors to use it, right? There are very many ways in which you can deploy this, right? You can maybe ask the doctor to just completely rely on this AI tool. Whatever it says, you just believe it. Would that be a good way to go about it? No, of course no. So another way to deploy is this. You get an X-ray, you go run it through this module. The deferral module is basically the AI model that you have developed, and it just tells, okay, this X-ray needs a look. Send it to a expert radiologist who is an expert in reading these X-rays, and then he can confirm or refute. Would that be a good idea? Yes. And you can also do a prediction and take its help as no pneumonia. In this setup, given that it is pneumonia, would you like more false positives or false negatives? Yeah, again, yeah, you just, because the next step is the doctor there. So you're okay if you're doing more, but you don't want false negatives because then it may be too late, he may get admitted into ICU instead of getting OPD, outpatient based treatment, right? So this is one way of deploying it. So another way of deploying is very similar. You train a model, you do all your thing and have an explainable part also to it, and then you make the radiologist still go through each and everything. The deferral module actually separates out, right? It tells that you need not look at these X-rays. That's why we said more false positives are okay, right? But in this one, you still ask them to look at the entire thing. So for example, this would be best suited when you are training junior radiologists, because those will be the guys who are looking at most of your chest X-rays, because the more experienced one will be looking at advanced CT and MRI images. So the junior will be doing ultrasounds and X-rays. So to train him or improve his efficiency, because he'll have hundreds of X-rays to look at, you can use this module which will tell directly, this X-ray came in, this is what I'm showing, is it correct? He can mark. So, but he goes through each and every X-ray. This is another way to deploy it. So a better RDJR. Anybody wants to try the expansion of RDJR? So it's actually an Ironman fan who's a radio diagnosis junior resident, so RDJR, right? So he can actually take help of this AI to be more efficient and more accurate, and he can be the deferral module. Maybe he can ask his seniors to look at some X-rays which both of them are screened, right? It's another way to deploy it. So before we go on to the next section where we summarize, briefly I'll touch upon the importance of domain knowledge, right? So you have been sitting through this presentation for almost 2 hours and have been a great crowd. Thank you for that. But many of the problems when I start out, do you understand what's going on? When I just state an example, do you understand what you're going on, honestly? Right at the very beginning. Most of you do? Yeah. Because a lot of steps have been like explained by a doctor, right? I tell you that this is the disease, CRISPR gene means this, and that's how you apply it to the transplant, in a clinical application for kidney transplant. Or I tell you that this is an X-ray image and this is what we need from it. And see, these are all domain knowledge. These are parts of the problem which many of you are not familiar with, right? And who is the best person to ask these details to? That is a domain expert, right? Domain expert, like me in cardiology. I am not a domain expert in healthcare by any means. I am an expert in cardiology, one of the healthcare domains, right? He is an expert in drug development. So if you want to develop a new drug and market it, you would go to him. So you would need to work with domain expert anyway. But then, why do you need domain knowledge? So that's what will give you an edge, right? You have, let's say, this crowd of, let's say, 100 people, and let's say there's one guy who has worked, can you just get up? So he is working, Ravi, hands off, a big hand please, he has an internship at IIT Ropar. He is working on medical domain, healthcare domain in image classification. So he relates to the case study, I believe. So he is working with domain experts, hospital guys. So the thing is, like I started the presentation with a general question on the technologies that you use. Your hospital visit was versus your mobile application, right? I said that everybody understands banking to a great extent, movie recommendations to a great extent. Healthcare you don't understand. It needs work, it needs upskilling there. Should you go and do an MBBS or a dental or an entire pharmacy course for that? Of course no. But you need to do something about it, right? You need to, the best way to do it is take up few projects, related projects which you are interested in. If you are a guy who is interested in, let's say, deep learning, and you would like to work on convolutional neural networks, then you would probably, you would go and work in a place where they do this image classification task, like what Ravi is doing. Like if you are somebody who is interested in generative AI and want to do something in the generative AI and for the healthcare domain where there are a lot of opportunities, then you would probably work on something like electronic medical records, right? You probably go to a clinician or a hospital, how they maintain records, how that process can be streamlined. This cannot be learnt in a course or even on an online course, right? You just have to go there, you have to spend some time, and early career is the best place actually to do this. If you are interested to explore this domain, or you want to switch this domain, or you want to explore first and then make up your mind, you better have hands-on experience. There are a lot of opportunities coming up. Please keep looking for them. It's a very interesting field, and we'll look at the size of the market also quickly in the end. So you need to acquire some kind of domain knowledge to interact with domain experts to get the best information out of them in the most limited time possible. So you can't like literally sit with them for years together to build a model, right? The doctor will come and sit with you for half an hour. He may not be interested in AI solutions at all, but it's your job to get the best out of him when you get that 1 hour interaction with them, right? You have to put that effort to have that knowledge, at least to ask relevant, important questions to your problem statement or your domain in which you are working. So that's why domain knowledge is important. And please, anybody who is interested in anything related to healthcare domain, jobs, businesses, please invest time in this aspect where you know how to speak to a domain expert. They can help you with several different aspects and cut down problem solving time to a great extent. Very simple, ridiculous questions will get straight away out of out of the window when you go approach them. That cuts down a lot of time. Instead, if you do the model and then in the end you realize that you did some very silly, stupid mistake which could have been solved by just talking for 5 minutes and ask one right question, it will cost you a lot of money and time, right? And you may actually be behind somebody else who is competing with you, right? So investing in domain knowledge is something which I urge you to do if you are interested in the healthcare domain, right? So very, very quickly we'll just supervised learning, we went through it a lot, we'll not touch it upon. Unsupervised learning is what I said. You can see the color coded stuff. So people are comprised of various different variables, genomic data. Multimodal data means you collect data on them on different things like text data, name, age, gender, diabetes or not. Get some image data, let's say maybe they have some x-rays. You get some lab data like they have their blood tests and maybe doctor's opinion or history and their inputs into a multimodal format, and then use unsupervised learning to cluster them. See the colors, these are similar people, and in this particular thing they actually use some genomics. So using genetic makeup they were able to classify them into a couple of groups, right? And then there are a lot of applications for reinforcement learning. I don't plan to touch upon it right now, but typical way in it which works is that you take an action, you get a feedback, you change, update your model. Take an action, get a feedback and keep updating your model. That's how reinforcement learning works. To give you an idea of, again a crowded slide, but I want you to focus on the red box. So what are the patents that are currently filed in which areas? You can see this is how the patent office, the world patent office, and this is the data from 2019. There are a lot of changes after that, but they haven't come up with an updated version. So machine learning, computer vision, NLP, that's part of generative AI currently, all these technologies are being used. And then in life sciences you can see that most of it is computer vision and machine learning. Like we said, imaging is the major application for AI models currently. But if you want to differentiate yourself and you're okay with not working on CNNs, you switch over to multimodality or generative AI field, where you have a lot of opportunities is coming up. So this is an example of remote monitoring, a patient who is getting discharged and you can monitor at home, and then you can send it over through an AI interface like we saw in that deployment or assistive model to a doctor who can then take some action. This is another picture which summarizes the entire process of using different things for patient stratification for different applications. Like this is a classification task, this is a drug discovery task, and then probably some predictive tasks wherein you predict some biomarkers. Now this is an important slide. I want your attention for this slide because this defines the current status as of 2023, I believe. This is published in a very prestigious journal called New England Journal of Medicine. This is what will tell you like what stage is healthcare AI domain, different parts of it are in which stages, right? Like we discussed, clinical analysis, that is diagnosis and decision support systems that we saw are the major application. But how valuable is it on a scale of low to high? In mission value, the impact a lot, because it's right there, it's high value, high impact. But where is the current state of adoption? It's still in pilot phase, right? Pilot phase. Pilot phase means you're just testing out models, maybe deploying very tiny models and testing them out. Nobody has any great approvals, although we have 880 approvals. Still we don't. Those are just, that's just a tip of the iceberg. There are a lot of other problems and devices that can be developed. So most of them are in a pilot phase. But like I said, there are a lot of other healthcare applications available, right? Starting from consumer facing applications towards corporate functions like insurance and reimbursements and follow-up care and all that. So mission value for most of these things are either medium to high, none of them are low except for corporate functions. Why this is low impact? Because, and this is actually more mature because this is more related to banking kind of applications, fintech kind of applications. So business applications are more advanced than healthcare applications. But you can see that most of them are in pilot phase or some in, most of them are not yet scaled. So what does it tell you? What does it tell you about opportunities in AI in healthcare? That's our title, right? What does it tell? Big opportunity or tiny opportunity? Yes, of course. Does it need a little bit of upskilling or a significant amount of upskilling for you to get into this field? Yes. But that shouldn't stop you because you're all young. You're like, see, I am 37, 38 years old, but you guys are in your 20s or 30s. You're starting out your career. It's the right time to actually upskill yourself, invest some time in it, learn things about the field, and of course you can always drop out and say that okay, this is not for me, it takes a lot of time, it's not interesting, a lot of regulations, you can get out. But if you actually sit through, the benefits are huge. You can ask our friend here how big the pharma industry is. It's huge, it's huge. Briefly about the challenges, we discussed many of this. A small change in the data can actually change your model's performance. Something as simple as somebody just used a different classification system for the disease, some different name for the disease, that can break your system. So that's a problem with maintenance. You deploy it, you're trying to maintain it, somebody comes in and the EMR and says that this disease should not be called ICD 10.1 anymore, it should be called ICD 10.3. Your model will break, right? Because that's how you based your treatment plan based on, but now that can break. Now these are all considerations that you can come up with. There are a lot of other things that can challenge you, but I think you get the idea. So this whole process, needs a huge participation of the hospital with ideally a AI quality initiative wherein they have a team of clinicians, IT guys, the data science guys, and of course patients should be part and parcel of the development and deployment. And this quality initiative will be the one through which the developers and regulatory agencies will interact with your hospital to develop new models. So this slide shows how the doctor and the AI are the center part. Actually, the current models, like you see, AI is not isolated, right? AI is always there. This model is called doctor in the loop model. You might have heard about human in the loop model in various other applications, wherein you don't let the AI make the direct decision, but you always keep that expert in the loop, right? So the AI does something, goes through the expert, and then only gets validated and the decision is taken. And yesterday, all of you were there in Professor Venkatesh's address in the evening. Nobody. He spoke about an important thing called skill gap, and he spoke about an example of human instrument interface in agriculture application, right? Wherein you actually have developed an instrument, but the farmer actually doesn't know to use it, right? It's a neat little instrument. You've taken care of the UX part and everything. It's easy to use, but they still don't know how to use it because they're completely new. So here comes the role of a human computer expert. And this applies not only to the doctor, even not only to the patient who needs to understand the impact of AI, actually doctor needs to understand like how to use it, right? So this is a very important task which is ignored by many of them, and they should start getting baked right in the development phase. It should not be an afterthought, it should be right from the beginning. Like how am I going to design this and deploy this so that the doctor uses it effectively like the way I want and gets the best out of it, right? So that's it, a few regulations related to it, the GDPR Act, the UI Act, which got just an approval 10 days ago. In India, we have something called as the Digital Personal Data Protection Act, and this is not yet approved, that is the Digital Information Security in Healthcare Act. So this is going to come this year probably, and these are acts which are bound by law, and this guideline is not bound by law, but this is something called good practices or something which it needs to be done to get approvals and all that, so that you don't go wrong in developing this model. A large part of responsible AI is explainable AI. We saw this explanation. This is another explanation where they look at the size of the heart, based on that they make some decisions, but we want the model to tell us whether it has correctly picked up or not, and ask it to make it and then give some other explanation of why it came to that conclusion. So quickly running to the biggest how big the opportunity is. This graph compares publications, and healthcare is nothing without research, and this is another feature which differentiates all other fields from healthcare. Research is kind of mandatory in healthcare to bring out any meaningful product, right? You'll be hard pressed to find any examples where research is not needed for healthcare. Maybe some back-end operations can be done, but most of the patient-facing applications and drug or device-facing applications, you will need research, and you can see the trend of research on a database which is a medical database, PubMed, which has some other related healthcare and life sciences articles also. I have compared it with the growth of cardiology, which is in violet color. You can see the growth of cardiology articles, and you can see the explosion from here. This is just as recent as 2017-18, right, when we had the attention paper coming out, when AI became very popular and many people have started now publishing more and more because the world is watching, right, and zoomed up, and I think in 2022 it crossed over the number of publications in cardiology, which is actually the second highest, the domain which contributes to the second highest publications after neurology is cardiology, and AI in healthcare has actually surpassed that particular field, right? And this is a market estimation. We won't have a very good idea of how much actually $187 billion means, but I can just tell you that among the patents filed, among what the industry is looking at, you can see that after communications and transportation as in your automatic cars and all that, after that life sciences and health sciences finds an application, and these are all the subdomains which many of which we discussed already. And in India, this is the situation in India, by the way, and you can see that healthcare patents have always led, and it's actually going up much faster than any other field, right? And if you go by component, software applications find the highest application, 40% of it, and services not very behind, 25%. And we saw some devices which form this 1/3 of the share, right? And this is the different fields of healthcare. As I told you, 75% is radiology, 11% is cardiology, and you have all other fields which are making up. General surgery will definitely go up. There will be robotic applications coming up. They will be very highly remunerative, but the percentage stake in the whole market will still be less. But the surgical solutions will actually be very impactful in terms of even financial benefits for the developers and the hospitals. So surgery, robotics and surgery is some keenly looked upon area. Again, this is patent filing in different fields. So this is by various applications that I told. Most of the applications is towards clinical diagnosis, you can see here, and then robotics is actually coming up in the medical arena a lot, right? And virtual assistants, this field actually includes virtual assistants also, which is a generative AI which is caught up very fast compared to other things which involve deep learning, which has been there for more than a decade now. So even the big techs are not behind. Even Google, Microsoft, Apple and Amazon are also interested in healthcare, but they're not going to solve all the problems of healthcare. Big companies can only solve big problems at very large scales, but hospital level problems can still be taken up by startups. So that's not going to be handled by these big techs. You can actually look into these things. And this is just startup scene 3-4 years ago, a lot of startups coming up in healthcare. And again, this is to show you the leading companies in healthcare patents. Siemens and Philips are leading. There are other companies also which do healthcare related work, but they don't get classified in accordingly in this one. So the final slide, right? So what are the domain skills that what are the skills that you need to develop if you want to get into healthcare domain and contribute meaningfully? So one thing we already touched upon is the domain knowledge and domain understanding. You need to get through machine learning basics. Never try to skip that step. You may do great deep learning and generative AI aspects, but simple things like false positives, negatives, starting from there, basic statistics and basic machine learning applications, and even the problem statement you have given, you have to choose whether a simple machine learning application, traditional machine learning can solve it instead of going for more expensive solutions like generative AI, right? Simple things like, XGBoost have done really well in some situations that cost nothing. If you use a generative AI for that, it will cost you millions of dollars and a lot of wastage of money. Of course, do a lot of projects. If you want me to highlight one area in medical imaging, healthcare, if you want to get into, then it will be deep learning and projects related to deep learning and of course transfer learning that we discussed. And there are other areas which you can learn, reinforcement learning and generative AI and explainable AI. Of course, regulatory aspect is part and parcel, research is part and parcel of healthcare. So I would like you to dedicate a part of your time during your learning of healthcare AI related stuff to regulatory aspects which govern the healthcare applications. So I leave you with this very extreme and surprising use case which recently came up. Yeah, I'm sorry. And you just, as you watch the video, just try to figure out what kind of technologies are going into this crazy idea. It's not yet there, it's a proposed solution.
Introducing BrainBridge, the world's first revolutionary concept for a head transplant machine, which uses state-of-the-art robotics and artificial intelligence to conduct complete head and face transplantation procedures, ensuring smooth outcomes and faster recoveries. Because head transplants require high speed, precision, and efficiency, BrainBridge utilizes advanced high-speed, high-precision robotic systems to speed up the process, eliminate human error, prevent brain cell degradation, and ensure seamless compatibility. The head transplant procedure involves removing a person's entire head containing the brain from their current diseased body and attaching it to the body of a healthy, young, brain-dead donor. Head transplants could provide individuals with severe medical conditions such as terminal cancer, paralysis, spinal cord injuries, or neurodegenerative diseases the opportunity to have a fully functional body while preserving their consciousness, memories, and cognitive abilities. The neurons are the longest-lasting functional cells in the human body, and according to our estimates, the brain is capable of lasting several hundred years provided that the rest of the body remains young. The BrainBridge concept involves the use of the integrated robotics platform comprised of the 2 autonomous surgical robots, designed to perform simultaneous surgeries on 2.
Alright, as the last part, I'd like you to give me some feedback. Please spend a couple of minutes on this form. I know all of you are tired. I thank you for being so patient and you have been a great crowd. I wish to meet you again and I'll take your feedback so that I can improve my presentations or I can help people with a lot of doubts or interest in healthcare domain to maybe make up their mind. And without credits, I know this presentation would not have been possible without Dr. Indu, who is a nephrologist, who is my wife, who is working with me in KMC Manipal. She is also heavily into research. She is now helping people out figure out their research careers and make a useful impact to the society. And thanks to Divya, and a round of applause please to Divya, Sri Krishna, who are here to help me out with this presentation setup and the quiz part. I hope you enjoyed the quiz part. Thank you. So, and my beloved friend, our group member Chandrakant, who is not there, who helped me with the editing the presentation and helping me suggest this wonderful background. That's his. So he gave me a very nice theme where it covers almost all aspects of healthcare: the doctor, the healthcare team, drug development, and ECG and other applications and stuff. Thank you so much.